Hey, also we're back on the TRS-80 Model 4P. Currently it's set up with just a single floppy cable. It's actually called an extension because it doesn't have any twists, it doesn't have multiple connectors. It is one just like this. Yeah. So today, order that I made it came in. I'm a little disappointed, at least right now, but that's just because I'm running under certain assumptions. I was a little disappointed because I thought it was going to have the male pins so that I could basically hook this into the TRS-80's original floppy cable and then plug in this cable to the pins, right? But it has a female socket on it. So maybe it's not a big deal, maybe it is. We're about to find out. So what we gotta do first is remove this screw. And then we can remove that. Swing this guy up out the way. Yeah, that's not too shabby. So, very, very bad practice to pull on these floppy cables. A better way is to get something like this, and you can get between the metal case. I'd really rather show you here. So, if you take this here, and what I like to do is just kind of go between the case and there, and you can lift, and then you can get this end of it, and you can get the other end, and you just work back and forth on the outside until it comes off, and you won't rip your cable to pieces. Thereby causing yourself undue hardship. There we go. If you look here, see how far back in this is? I don't see this working out for us. Maybe it will, but I don't think so. Plus, you don't have hardly any room to maneuver. I don't think I'm even going to try it. See, it's way in there. So I think what I'm going to do with this adapter here, because I'm not even 100% sure which of these connectors I need to be on, which is 1 or which one's 0 and which one's supposed to be 1. So I think the hot setup is to leave the floppy cable on this, and that would give us a little more flexibility to use either side of this, whichever will be appropriate. Now that said, that's going to require a modification of this little board here. So what I'm going to have to do is desolder this connector that they put on here and just put on some pin headers. Looks like it's the one I cut out. So it goes right in the pinholes. So the spacing and the sizes is appropriate, shouldn't be an issue. Another gotcha on this TRS-80 is of course the placement of pin 1. If you look down in here at this connector, can you see my finger? Yeah. If you look down here at your floppy cable connector, you'll see that it says 34. As you're looking at the machine from the front, it will say 34 on your left hand side of the connector. And if you're using a non-TRS-80 connector, look where the red pin would be if you were to put this on in a manner that would make sense to most people. It would be at pin 34 instead of pin 1. So what I've had to do to use a regular cable is you have to turn it this way and come up and over with the cable. And it does work in a single drive application. Of course, what I'm looking to do is have the ability to both write and read floppy disks as well as just the GoTek. So we have to go a little further, and we have to try and get these drives to play nice with each other. I think it can be done. We're going to try to do that. So that's one definite advantage to using the original TRS-80 cable, is you get a nicer install here for sure. Alright, so my original plan was I was going to use my desoldering tool to desolder the connector from the circuit board. However, I began to realize that I wasn't able to get all the solder out, and taking it apart in this manner left a high likelihood of pulling up a trace or lifting a pad, something like that. So what I decided to do was I went ahead and started clipping off the pins from the connector, and that way I could just apply heat to the individual pins and remove them one by one, and that seemed to work quite effectively. The other 17 or whatever. They work together to make a 34 pin header. How about that? Just want to get that on there like so, just to kind of hold the spacing. Maybe tack a couple. Okay, that's all tacked on there. Alright, let me get that cable off there. This guy should stay put. Yeah, there it is. Let's get the little flux pin on it. Clean it up a little bit. You unbeat the brush and the alcohol. Roll it out. So there's no continuity between these. Checks out. Put the tools away. And then we can figure out which way it goes. Red down towards this little, after the little divider. And that is on there. Now, so if that just happens to be right, that's ready to go there. Gotta put this on here. I need a flashlight. There it is. Some light here. There maybe. Check it. One. Okay. Place. Put this guy in. There. Nice. Okay, so for right now, that's safe-ish where it's at. Not perfect, of course. Floppy disk drive is not good. Well, maybe this one. No, it's trying to boot to the other one. So we gotta switch them. Turn it this way. Switch them out. No, power. Power for the floppy. Always problematic. Alright, so take that one. Plug it in. We'll plug that one in here.
Yes.
Right where we don't want it, right against something middle. Alright, we got nothing touching nothing. Alright, back to the camera and on. There we go, it's reading it. Nice. Okay. One. 84, I guess. Can't tell it the truth, I won't believe you. Nice. So it will read the GoTek. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and clip out a whole bunch of stuff here. The next steps I took was to try to see if I could format a blank floppy disk, and I was unable to do so. There's something went sour with that floppy disk drive right there. Spoiler alert, in a future episode I'll swap it for the other one and it will successfully work. So, moving on. Alright, well, we shouldn't discount the fact that even though we weren't able to use the floppy disk drive because there was an issue with that, the cabling is working. So let's go ahead and get the back panel off of this thing, and while we're at it, we will also be removing the power supply. In order to get to these screws that hold all this together, well, we're going to have to take a drive thing out again. So there's a couple screws back here that hold the bracket that holds the handle. This is luggable after all. So once we get those screws out, then we can get that handle bracket off, and then a couple of other little screws, and we get the rear panel off. With the rear panel off and the power supply out of the way, we'll be able to access a couple screws for the front bezel, which are nestled right between that metal panel there that we're looking at right now that has the fan in it and the CRT. So we'll have to reach past a lot of dangerous stuff, and getting the power supply out of the way will definitely be a help so we can see better. Removing the floppy cable right here. Alright, out come the screws for the power supply. Once you get those screws out, you can lift it, but there's some wires near what will be my left hand here in the picture, the video. So once you flip it over, you can actually put a couple screws back in. It actually tells you to do this in the service manual. You put a couple screws here, and that'll kind of hold it together for testing and evaluation. So while I got it apart, I went ahead and looked around, and I found that I do have a Rifa capacitor in there, and it has some cracks in it. Now this Rifa, if you don't know, they're notorious for turning into a big wad of magic smoke, causing the computer to quit working. So it's good to get rid of those whenever you can find them. So we'll be assessing here. I found that it's a 0.22 microfarad Rifa X2 cap or X cap. So I'll be replacing that with one I can get from Amazon. Well, they had a 30-piece capacitor set. It came with 6 different values, and one of those is the one I need, and they can be here tomorrow. So that's the part that really appealed to me, so I went ahead and ordered them from Amazon. They're going to be more like these here, these yellow nylon things. So that'll work. They've served me well in the Apple II. Alright, let's see. We can get these 2 screws out of here without getting ourselves electrocuted in the process. There's another screw down low. Let's see. What if we could catch some of this, actually catch some of this on video here? That would be awesome, wouldn't it? That way everybody will know why Vern died. Okay, here. I feel like it's not turning. Okay. So there's that. And then this. Okay. With all that done, we can take this back apart. Alright, so we'll take these screws out here, flip this back like it's supposed to be. We don't have the part, and there's no reason to leave it in such a state overnight. Besides, we could technically still play with it right now. As long as we're at it. Okay. That looks pretty good. Awesome. Next big thing. Stand up on his back here a little bit. Let's see if we can get the face off. Break some contrast knobs off. And the face should just lift off. Look at that. Fancy. Yeah, it's a little dirty inside. We'll fix that. Yep. It's smaller now, huh? Alright, so this here, we got to do something with this. I'm afraid these pins are going to make contact with something. So I don't even care if it's just a piece of electrical tape. We've got to do something with that. Alright, y'all, so right about here, Misadventure Queen came in and started making all kind of noise. So we'll just do a voiceover. So obviously I'm taping up the floppy cable adapter so that we don't have anything arcing or shorting out or whatever. Quick snip. Yeah. So while we got this apart, I decided I'd go ahead and make a couple changes to the GoTek. The original purpose for the switch, if you recall, was to switch drive numbers. Certain software will require different needs for that, but at any rate, that's not going to work with this setup. And since this is the TRS-80 I have, we will make this work more appropriately with this machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of these drive select wires off the switch, and the switch actually has a light in it. So since we can't really use it for a switch, I'm just going to make it a light. So we'll be cutting off some of the jumpers there and just replacing that with a jumper on S0, so to make this drive 0, and then wiring up the wiring to make the light illuminate. Here's a piece of heat shrink tubing going on there. Yep. We'll just solder that wire on there real quick, and then it'll be nice and secure. Then we can slide that heat shrink tubing up there to seal it off. Yep. The other one needs to be put back on the switch, that green wire. So a little tin on the tip, a tinned wire, and I put some solder on the switch, and just kind of touch them together, let it cool, and you've got a pretty good connection. Little hot air will shrink that shrink tubing down. Alright, put a zip tie to hold the wires together and keep them out of the way of the screws. Quick snip. We're ready for the cover. Snug up the screws. Yeah, now we can put it back in there. I'm going to wait until I test it before I go ahead and put the mounting screws in, though. So computer's on. As you can see, that big red switch is all lit up. So seemed like it made some symmetry because you have the power switch on the left side, and it lights up red. And that was the idea I had when I originally was deciding how to build the GoTek, because I wanted to put some red lights over there so we'd have some symmetry between the left and the right. Go ahead and we're going to leave it like this for a little bit. Probably going to call it off here pretty soon for the evening. So I thought I'd put the screws in. Alright, y'all, I think while we play a little 13 Ghosts on our way out, we're going to call this one off. In the next episode, we'll get the keyboard torn down, do the retro bright, and then we can begin the process of putting this thing back together. So with that, I want to thank you for watching. I'd like to invite you to subscribe, and until the next one, y'all take care.